With WrestleMania weekend fast approaching, it is that time of year once again where I look back at some classic WrestleManias over the decades. And this month's run is going to be very special because I'm looking at the 3 shows between WrestleManias 11 and 15, which I have covered here. So these next 3 episodes are going to fill the blanks, so to speak, beginning with WrestleMania 12 from March 31st, 1996 at the Arrowhead Pond in Anaheim, California, which we just saw back in my Rumble 99 review. This show was nominated by Ron Schuster, Geek Culture, and the Heartburn Kid over at patreon.com/wrestlingwithwregret. This is a very chaotic time in the World Wrestling Federation, just in terms of the personnel they have. A lot of talent is coming in, more are going out, a lot of changes and shifts in the overall hierarchy in the pecking order coming very soon in this company. But first, can we talk for a moment about how just fucking petty Vince McMahon was over Billionaire Ted? Way back in my Rumble 96 review, I talked about how the Federation started doing all these Billionaire Ted sketches with the Nacho Man and the Huckster and Scheme Gene to poke fun at their age and all the things they claimed the Turner and WCW were doing against poor old little Vince McMahon and the World Wrestling Federation. Who'd want to hurt those guys? Well, much to my surprise, this bullshit did not stop after the Rumble. It kept going for weeks and weeks and weeks, way beyond those Billionaire Ted Wrestling War Room sketches. Nope, they pretty much kept it going with Larry Fling Live, a fake game show that played back some unflattering Turner quotes. Their final skit was a meeting with the Federal Truth Commission, and that was kind of a play on A Few Good Men by the end of it. How did it take 3 months for someone in the USA Network to finally put their foot down and say enough was enough? These were the main event segments on Raw and Superstars for weeks. Well, finally, this thing reached its ultimate and I guess very appropriate crescendo on WrestleMania. Actually, it was the free-for-all, the show they had an hour before the Mania proper. It was billed as a geriatric match, a pre-taped affair between the Huckster and the Nacho Man with Billionaire Ted as the referee, where these 2 old guys, quote, die in the ring, and then so does Billionaire Ted, which is good because this whole campaign probably made everyone dumber for having watched and experienced it. I don't want to hear a damn thing going forward about, oh, did you hear what that guy at AEW said about WWE? Because you are never going to reach this level of petty. It just cannot be done. You can't convince me otherwise. Anyway, back to Mania. 18,853 folks in attendance, 290,000 pay-per-view buys, down 50,000 from WrestleMania 11 a year ago, which was Bam Bam Bigelow and Lawrence Taylor in the main event. I love this opening package here. It's very much focused on just the Iron Man match. Doesn't really care about the rest of the undercard in this thing, but it is doing a very good job building up the glory and the splendor of this rivalry in the Iron Man match. Talking about how Shawn is the maverick who spits in the face of adversity, and how Bret is the triumph of tenacity, standing in defiance of defeat. My God, the pros in this thing. Vince McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary, and check out that ring canvas with the WrestleMania 12 logo on it. You don't see too many instances in WWE especially where there is any kind of imagery printed on the canvas. It was very prevalent in WCW, they've done it with AEW certainly, but WWE for a while that canvas was very sacred. Only recently, that Mountain Dew Pitch Black match I saw at the Rumble this year is the first time I can remember since WrestleMania 12 when anything was printed on that canvas. Your opening match is a 6-man affair as Vader, Owen Hart, and the British Bulldog of Camp Cornette take on Yokozuna, Ahmed Johnson, and Jacob the Snake-Up Roberts. Vader arrived in the World Wrestling Federation earlier in the year. He debuted at the Royal Rumble and he laid out Gorilla Monsoon the next night. Meanwhile, in February, Yokozuna finally had enough of Jim Cornette's jibber jabber and fired his manager. Yokozuna is a babyface now who speaks perfect English. The plan was seemingly to have Vader and Yokozuna in a one-on-one match at Mania. They said as much on commentary soon after In Your House 6, but for whatever reason, either it being Yokozuna's weight or the fact they had so many other bodies they had to try and cram into this show to get over because this big 1-hour match they're going to have at the end of the show taking up time, it was turned into a 6-man. Another stipulation here, if Yokozuna's team wins, he gets 5 minutes in the ring with Cornette afterward, and they have a demonstration one time on the big screen showing just what Yokozuna Yokozuna would do to his former manager. Yokozuna's team, led by Mr. Fuji, who was gone for several weeks, seems just fine after Cornette suggested he shoved him down some stairs. Very interesting choice for what they did for the themes for the babyface team in this one, because it wasn't just one theme, it wasn't just Yokozuna's theme the whole time. They play a little bit of Yokozuna's, someone hits the next track button on the CD player to play Ahmed Johnson's theme for a little bit, and they played Jake Roberts' theme for a little bit. I would have settled for a really hastily made bad hybrid theme over this. The match starts off frenetic. Yokozuna takes down Vader, then Ahmed with his big crazy dive to the outside onto him. Remember how he looked just a couple years later in WCW? Yokozuna puts the hurting on his former tag partner in Owen Hart, but Bulldog pulling Owen out of the way, Yoko takes himself out. Vader punching Yokozuna down to the mat, but Yoko recovers and hits the big-ass Uranagi, tags in Ahmed, the new Sensation Award winner from the previous night's Slammy Awards. Ahmed wants to go for the Pearl River Plunge, but Owen Hart with a missile dropkick cuts him off. Ahmed clotheslines Owen and tags in Jake, getting his first real action in the match. Hits that short arm clothesline on Owen, but then he gets cut off and triple teamed. Man, the babyface is getting their ass kicked for a while here. Jake takes a lot of abuse. He avoids a Bulldog splash and very slowly tags into Yokozuna, who pummels Vader and Bulldog before tagging Roberts back in. Jake DDTs Owen, but the referee is distracted. Cornette tries to interfere, but he's cut off. Jake goes for another DDT, but Vader stops him, hits the Vader bomb on Jake, and covers for the win. I give it 2.5 stars out of 5. The match I thought was okay. I loved the crowd response to everything they did here. I think Yokozuna was fire as a babyface. I mean, as someone who'd never really seen face Yokozuna, it was really cool and refreshing to see him kind of work this style and it getting over the way it did. I think pretty much everyone did a good job filling their roles. I think the action was tight. I mean, Ahmed, when he was good, but when he was bad, he was also very bad. And one of these days, I will do a deep dive into the Ahmed Johnson in the WWF story, but now's not that time. But nevertheless, I thought this was a pretty good job getting everyone over. We had a high package for the Roddy Piper Goldust rivalry. We go to this match now, the Hollywood Backlot Brawl, or Hollywood Backlot Brawl if you're Vince on commentary, as Roddy Piper takes on Goldust. Piper became the acting president of the Federation after Gorilla Monsoon was taken out and was immediately put in the role of competitor again. Now, Goldust did beat Razor Ramon at the Rumble to win the Intercontinental Championship. There was supposed to be a rematch at WrestleMania set up, but as the story goes, Scott Hall soon gave his notice and said he was going to leave for WCW, and soon after that, he failed a drug test and was suspended, and that was the end of Razor Ramon, the WWF for the time being. But the way they kind of wove Piper into the storyline, it was really seamless, it felt like, kind of watching this programming, the way Goldust pivots from Razor Ramon to Piper. It feels very natural to me. These promos that Goldust had cut in the build to this are really wild. Some more of that creepy, androgynous stuff he was so known for, cutting a promo in the set of Piper's pit, touching himself and all that. It's just really out there, especially given the time this is taking place. Piper sees past Goldust mind games, has vowed to make a man out of Goldust at Mania. Apparently, there was originally an idea where Piper would fight O.J. Simpson at WrestleMania. Yes, Orenthal James Simpson, the former football star turned actor, the guy who was recently acquitted of killing 2 people, that O.J. Simpson. But cooler heads prevailed, obviously. But don't worry, because we're going to get our O.J. reference soon enough. We cut to this pre-taped footage of the backlots of Hollywood, actually filmed a week before Mania. Piper's holding the ball bat as Goldust enters in his sleek golden Cadillac. This is a violent and chaotic affair here. We got fire hoses, we got bat attacks, we got craft services, we've got dumpsters. It looks like a fight because, according to the story, these guys really were laying into each other. They really wanted to protect the business. They didn't want to lift any veil for the onlookers who in the backlot who were watching as this match was going on. So the story goes, they pretty much just beat the hell out of each other, and it really shows in this thing. Goldust gets back into his car and straight up hits Piper with it. I'm kind of surprised that Piper took that okay and didn't break his legs, though he did suffer a broken wrist during this segment. He runs back to his Ford Bronco and peels off after Goldust. The match is not over yet, though. We'll see the exciting conclusion later. Up next, it's Steve Austin's WrestleMania debut. He is the hand-picked $1 million champion, and he's taking on Savio Vega. But what makes this very special, this is the first major show Austin wrestles as under the Stone Cold nickname. Of course, he came out as the ringmaster when he debuted for the Federation back in late December, but he recently changed the nickname, and of course, the rest is history. It's a bit of a grudge match here. Vega and Austin have been beefing the last couple of weeks. These two were paired up randomly in the tag title tournament, but Austin cost Vega Vega the match. Doc Hendricks interviews Vega backstage about the match, and his line of questioning takes longer than Vega's actual promo. Fists are flying earlier in the match, the fight goes to the outside, and Savio on the attack. Austin comes back after throwing Savio into the ring post. Nice backflip counter out of the hold by Savio. Austin hits the Luthez press before it got over. As the match goes on, we hear from President Piper. He actually calls in a couple of times during the course of this matchup. We can hear police sirens in the background of the calls. He says he's just going after Goldust, going 80 down the freeway. We then cut to a split screen during this match that shows the wrestling on one side. Then on the other, we see this footage of the famous O.J. Simpson police chase that happened when he and were being chased by the cops for several miles down the LA freeways before he went to his house, but they're saying it's Piper. And okay, that's actually some really clever use of like archival footage, is to use that over this supposed chase Piper's doing for Goldust, the police escorts. Anyway, Austin goes all the way up to the top rope for a huge flying nothing, but Vega puts up the boot. Savio makes his comeback, but his spinning heel kick accidentally takes down the ref. Ted DiBiase on the outside, grabbing the $1 million title, puts it in the ring. Austin laying out Vega with the title belt twice. The $1 million dream is locked in, still no referee though. DiBiase doing all that he can to try and revive Tim White. He finally gets up, does the arm drop, and then Austin wins his first of many WrestleManias, but he keeps that hold locked on for a good while. I give it 2.5 stars out of 5. It was a solid matchup. I don't know if it really befits WrestleMania at this point, but I think it was okay. And I don't know, I felt like they were kind of pumping the brakes sometimes with the action. And I don't know if it was a case of, hey, we know we're going to have some more matches down the line, so let's kind of save some for the later ones, or maybe they knew they were going to be competing for televised audience eyeballs with the split screen, the OJ footage, or what, but I don't know. I just felt like it started off really hot and then slowed down considerably like a minute or two in. But yeah, still a solid match. We go back to the footage of Piper driving through Anaheim traffic, and then we go backstage to see Mr. Perfect interviewing Diesel. We recap all the Undertaker's mind games since February. Do these mind games affect him? Diesel says he never sweats anything. He says that Big Daddy will take cool of him, and then his former friend Shawn Michaels is next. We go back to more Ford Bronco footage, and they say, doesn't this look familiar? More nail on the head stuff here with these guys. Then we go to our next matchup. After a 3-year hiatus, the former WWF champion, the Ultimate Warrior, makes his long-awaited return, and poor Hunter Hearst Helmsley's going through the buzzsaw. The aristocrat Helmsley, accompanied by the future Sable, making her Federation debut at this matchup. Lightning strikes. The Ultimate Warrior symbol lights up on stage as Warrior sprints down the ring to a huge ovation. Contrary to Jerry Lawler's sources over the weeks, Warrior is not 400 pounds and bald after all. Hunter jumps Warrior and the crowd goes quiet. Helmsley with the pedigree, but Warrior pops right back up. The clotheslines, the press slam, the splash, and that's a WrestleMania squash, baby. You know, a while ago on this channel, I said I was really tired of all the drawn-out, unnecessarily long Triple H matches at WrestleMania. This was not the alternative that I had in mind. I give it 0 stars out of 5. You know, according to legend, the match was supposed to go a few minutes longer than this, but Warrior allegedly shut all that down, making it this really short match. And I don't know, maybe it was for the best, because if you listen to that crowd reaction, big pop for his return. The bell rings and Triple H is beating on him, the crowd is dead quiet. But when Warrior no-sells the pedigree and pops right back up, the crowd's alive again. So maybe there is something to that. Maybe you could have gotten more of a match out of it. I don't know. So I think it's just one of those things where, again, it's part of that larger story of Triple H's arc in the company and what he had to overcome. Because this match really did not do him any favors. Yeah, you get a Mania payday and you work with the Ultimate Warrior in this big comeback, but you also look like a goof. And, you know, chances are Triple H is going to be there in 4 months when the Warrior wasn't. So I just think it was it was definitely a loss for Triple H in more ways than one for that one. He was certainly bounced back from that. But I mean, I don't feel too sorry for Triple H too much in terms of booking, but this is an exception I will make. After the match, Todd Pettengill backstage, sporting the same unfortunate haircut that I had earlier last year, and now it's time to bring out the wild man, Marc Mero, who has arrived from the WWF. The former Johnny B. Bad's very excited to get here after a 5-year journey, and wow, look at the superstar treatment they gave him with this interview in the loading dock. Look at the wildness in these eyes, he says. But then Hunter Hearst Helmsley barges in, gets in Mero's face, Helmsley yelling at Sable, Mero stands up to her and for himself, and a brawl breaks out. Then we learn that Mero and Sable are husband and wife, and that's how their partnership begins on television. If you want to learn more about Marc Mero's run in the WWF, I do have a video about that, and you can check that out right here. Maybe even more OJ footage? Up next, it's Diesel taking on the dead man, the Undertaker. Back in January, January, as we covered in the Rumble 96 review, Diesel cost Undertaker his title match against Bret Hart. Taker got some revenge at In Your House the next month when he pulled Diesel down through the ring during his title match with Bret in the cage. The following night on Raw, Diesel destroyed Taker's casket with an axe. More mind games from Taker, as we saw earlier, including the first use of someone seeing a pre-recorded image of themselves in a tight shot of a casket. I think the next time this would happen would be Taker's feud with, I believe it was Randy and Bob Orton, and maybe he did it again with Heidenreich, but I think it's the first time they tried doing this trick before. I think it's pretty effective. As Diesel makes his way to the ring, he famously yells, "I'm the shit, I'm telling you," which is cut from the network version. They start swinging at the opening bell. Diesel knocks Taker out of the ring, but he's dragged out. They fight out there for a bit. Back in the ring, Taker hits the current school, goes for his flying lariat, and he gets none of it. Taker grabs a chair on the outside, swings for the fences, but Diesel ducks, and he throws the dead man into that gilded barricade. Big Daddy Coolata, stalking his prey for a while, hits the big boot. Diesel conducting the rest in peace chants, must have got his practice in when he led the office choir that one Christmas. Snake Eyes in the corner, Taker and Diesel trading blows, the double boot, and both are down. Big bear hugs locked in for a while before Taker fights out of it. Lawler yelling at Diesel, "You got him, baby!" Taker on the top rope hits a huge diving tackle. Out of nowhere, though, Diesel with the jackknife powerbomb. He feels pretty good about himself and he soaks that one in as Taker sits up, but he gives him another jackknife. Diesel keeps taking his time. He starts to go down for a cover, but Taker keeps fighting back with goozles. Taker connects the flying lariat, hits a sort of ugly choke slam. We get the tombstone pile driver. Undertaker wins, and his WrestleMania streak is at a young and healthy 5-0. This one gets 3.5 stars out of 5 for me. I like this match a lot. I think for two big guys, for them to show off their athleticism the way they did in this thing, I thought was pretty good. I think the pacing for this match was also pretty well done, except maybe for the ending when Diesel took a little bit too much time grandstanding and a hot dogging after that first jackknife. But I think besides that, everything else I think played really well, and I think was really well received and just looked good. If you remember my countdown from a year ago where I ranked all the Undertaker's WrestleMania matches, I put this one at number 12. It's definitely one of the better ones of his history in WrestleMania matches. So, if you want to see more of that countdown and see where his other Mania matches rank, you can check that video out right here. Of course, Diesel would not be long for the company. He would soon go on to WCW and change the course of wrestling history. Meanwhile, Mankind would officially debut the next night on Raw and would start a long feud with The Undertaker. But hark, Goldust and Piper have made their way to Arrowhead Pond. The cameras lose Piper for a minute as he makes his way back into the building, and now the live portion of the fight takes place. Goldust dismantling Piper's lower half for a while, more mind games by Goldust. Piper inexplicably has got a whole ass roll of wrist tape hanging from his hand, not sure where he got it from. Piper trying to fight back, but Goldust still able to pick him apart, does some sexy choking, goes up top, but Piper shakes the ropes and Goldust lands on his globes. Goldust plants a kiss on Piper, who has officially had enough of these shenanigans. He puts Piper in the testicular claw, gives him a spanking, strips him down to his lingerie, drags him around with the suit, which is a hilarious visual. Dick Knee City. Goldust powders and runs away. So, by virtue of Goldust running away twice, Piper has been declared the winner of the Backlot Brawl. I give the whole thing, parts 1 and 2 of the Hollywood Backlot Brawl, 3 stars out of 5. It was certainly a spectacle. You can't really call it a match. It was just this wild stunt that they did basically across the whole of the show, from the opening part to all the OJ footage during the chase and this finale here live in front of the crowd. I think it was very well done. I think this was a star-making performance by Dustin Rhodes. Absolutely. As far as like some of the matches that best crystallize the essence of what Goldust is about, this is definitely one of those ones. I think it's an all-time match of his, just from a performance standpoint. I think that Piper coming back, though, is really funny to me because they just spent months burying guys like Hogan and Macho Man for being too old and everything. Meanwhile, let's bring out Roddy Piper. Isn't he awesome? In your main event, the first ever Iron Man match for the WWF Championship as Bret Hart defends against Shawn Michaels. Of course, Shawn won the Royal Rumble match back in January. President Piper made it the first ever Iron Man match as a result, and the build for this has been entirely focused on Shawn Michaels and his boyhood dream. Ever since he was 12 years old, all he wanted to do was be world champion. He's back in Texas training with his old trainer, Jose Lothario. Meanwhile, Bret's in Calgary training going, I'm a real tough WrestleMan. Welcome back, President Gorilla Monsoon. Haven't seen him since his beatdown by Vader. Out comes Jose Lothario by himself, who points to the rafters to reveal HBK way up top for that legendary entrance on the zip line. What an iconic, badass entrance this is. I mean, seriously, say what you will about Shawn Michaels, this entrance is absolutely iconic and legendary. All it reminds me of when I watch this back is thinking about, I think it was Here Comes the Pain. It was one of those PS2 SmackDown games where you're doing story mode, and if you do well enough and you're in the main event, you get the option of like, oh, there's a special Mania entrance for you if you want, and you could say yes or no. But if you choose yes, it's the Shawn Michaels zipline entrance, and you get that no matter who you're playing as, whether it's Shawn Michaels or anyone else or a created player. And of course, me being the Kane mark that I was at that time, I did story mode as Kane. So the visual of like newly unmasked, psycho, one contact in the eye Kane going like, woohoo, yeah, WrestleMania, going down the zipline is an image forever burned into my mind. Early on, we get some of that body language by Bret when Shawn does a couple of headlock takeovers. The match begins with a lot of chain wrestling, grappling, the fundamentals. Finally, at around like 10 minutes in, we finally get some faster action and some punches thrown. Bret slowing things back down after some quick flurries. I gotta say, Jerry Lawler did a really good job on commentary with this matchup here. I mean, when you think about Jerry Lawler on commentary, you don't really think of like analysis and breaking things down, but you know, he's earning his money here because he spends a lot of this matchup talking about, the strategies and like why you want to pace yourself and like the difficulty of wrestling for an hour and this and that. And I think he did a really good job here. Big clothesline by Bret, and Shawn goes to the outside. Bret falls onto Tony Chimmel's lap. Shawn goes for sweet chin music, but he lays out Chimmel instead. Damn. And we go back to the headlock. Shawn gets a hold of the arm and works it over for a while. They space out the moments where they start throwing fists. That makes it a lot more impactful to me. We get some more big near falls. Bret hitting a pile driver. We only get a 2 count. Shawn goes to the super kick. Bret powders, but Shawn dives off the top rope onto him. Shawn with another top rope crossbody and a 2 count. And we're back to the headlock for a bit. Shawn is launched out of the ring, the camera totally losing him mid-flight. Makes the fall look so much scarier though. Bret drives Shawn's back into the post. Minutes later, Shawn is flopped up to the top turnbuckle. We get the big back suplex, a 2 count. The longer the match goes, you can just see whether they're working or it's a shoot. It's probably both. But the fact they look so just devastated and exhausted as this match has gone on, and every move means more now. Shawn collides into Jose on the outside. Later, Bret with a German suplex. There's still not a fall between them after 50 minutes. With 7 minutes to go, Bret with a big superplex. He fights to get the sharpshooter locked in, but Shawn fights out of it. Bret with a flying nothing, and he lands right into the boot. Shawn finally does his kip up, about 4 minutes or so left in the match. Gets a nice pop. 2 minutes to go. Shawn with a top rope moonsault in the 2 count. Shawn leaps off the ropes one more time, but Bret catching him in the sharpshooter with about 40 seconds left on the clock. Time expires and Shawn did not submit. And so the match is considered a draw. There was no falls in that hour time limit, and so Bret's gonna go in his merry way. But the boyhood dream must live on because it's announced afterward the match is restarted under sudden death rules. Shawn finally hits sweet chin music, but both men are too tired. Another super kick, the cover, and the win. Shawn achieving that boyhood dream and is the WWF champion. Shawn telling Earl Hebner to tell Bret to get the fuck out of the ring so he can have his moment, and that's the show. I give the match 4 stars out of 5, and I went into this thing, I had seen it like once before, but many years ago, so my memories about it pretty hazy, but I hear so much talk online about this match being, it's overrated, it's boring, it's not a good match, and really none of those things to me are true after having watched this. I watched it back with like fresh eyes and really focused on this, and I was definitely engaged. I mean, if you like big high spots and stuff, you're really not going to see them until the last like 20 minutes of this matchup, but they have to pace themselves for an hour, which is why you don't get punches for the first like 10 minutes and it's all just like chain wrestling and stuff, which is great. If you're just a fan of like the graps and the wrestling side, if you like wrestling in your WrestleManias, then this is definitely the match for you. Now, I don't know if I would watch this again anytime soon because the real problem with Iron Man matches is you gotta wait until the end of the match, the time allotted, to get a finish. And so why would you sit through 59 minutes and 30 seconds of no falls or anything where you could just watch the last 30 seconds of what happened and then go to the sudden death? It's one of those things where you're either into it or you're not. I think if you really just kind of sit and you focus and engage in the match and just like let yourself get caught up in it, I think it's a great match. Now, is it the best Mania match of all time? God, no. And so it's just one of those things where it's It's something that's easier to digest when it's shorter. An hour takes a lot out of everybody. It takes it out of the wrestlers, the referee, the announcers, the fans who got to witness the whole thing. So credit to everyone for the conditioning and the persistence in staying through to the end. Though if I'm being honest, Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle would have a much better Iron Man match many years later. My grade for WWF WrestleMania 12 is a C+. Man match was great. I'm not sure it belongs on a WrestleMania. I think the fact that it takes up so much time on the card kind of deprives you of seeing other matches on the show. And you probably could have seen a few more and a few more stars on display here, and you probably could have had some more matches and more big moments. But of course, because that long match happening, you're kind of working with the rest of what you have in those other 5 matches. And so some of them weren't amazing, weren't really Mania caliber, but then you've got like the Hollywood Backlot Brawl, which I think is iconic, and you've got the Diesel Undertaker match, which is great. So yeah, it's not a terrible Mania, it's just not a great Mania either. And I think that if you didn't have the Iron match there, and you had a shorter match and put a couple other matches in there, then I think you might have had a different show entirely, and it would have felt different, and maybe I would have graded it a little higher. But what did you think of WrestleMania 12, folks? I want to hear about it in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on the Iron Man match? Do you think it's overrated? Do you think it's an all-time classic? Maybe you think it's both. I want to hear what you have to say. Of course, in 2 weeks' time, folks, the WrestleMania train is still going down the line, and our next stop, the next station we're stopping at, folks, is WrestleMania 13. But until then, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.